If our partner, family, or friend is asking an utterly inappropriate question about our relationship, career, weight, or anything that has absolutely nothing to do with them, how can we respond and stand up for ourselves?
People are going to say the most messed up things to you. They're going to ask you the most inappropriate questions. The most intimate stuff. Well, you know, why don't you have kids?
Yeah.
Why don't you eat wheat? Where's the person you brought to last year's gathering, right? Like, why'd you get a divorce? Oh, I heard you had a miscarriage. Literally, people will say this to your face. So one of my favorite responses is from actually Kasia Urbaniak, who's a power dynamic expert. She's so brilliant. And if someone says, what happened with your miscarriage? You can literally, you question the questioner's question. Mm-hmm. So according to Kasia, when someone is asking us a question, they're dominating us. They're the dom and we're the sub in that moment. When you flip that script and you say to the person who just asked you about your miscarriage, why would you want to know that? Literally, you question their question. Or my favorite of hers is, why would you ask me that? Now the onus is on that nosy mother effer to explain. Oh, you know what, dude, it was just my morbid curiosity. I just wanted to make you talk about something incredibly painful because I'm bored. And of course, people don't say that, but whenever I use this, why would you ask me that? People go, oh, I don't know, I'm just making conversation. I'm like, yeah? We could talk about something else. Great.
Okay, that's really strong. What happens in those moments, though, where you know sometimes the person's going to gaslight you? It's like, why are you so sensitive?
Yep.
You know, and now it's all on you.
Oh, I love it. When they now they're trying to flip the script.
Yeah.
To be the dom and you be the sub. Why are you so sensitive? You can say, we're not talking about my sensitivity. I'm asking you why you would ask me that question at grandma's Christmas party. Really?
Yeah.
Really, Aunt Betty? Am I really talking about my miscarriage over stuffed celery? I don't think I am.
My audience really wants to know about partnerships when you're in relationships, and then very much family dynamics, especially when it comes to parents, because these are always the very hard things to navigate.
Yep.
And sometimes a lot of us, women especially, will just bite our tongue because let's say you've been brought up, you've said it many times, to be the good girl. People turn to you, you feel good about it, but now you go to these family gatherings and it's not even questioning, it's just remarks where it's like, oh, what a shame about John. I love John, you know, like the partner that you were with maybe last year. And it's like, what a shame John's gone. And now they're just making snide little comments that you feel are inappropriate, that just demean you. But now you're retreating into your whole childhood behavior that you've always had, which is being silent, not speaking up.
I have ideas. I have thoughts. If someone says, oh, what a shame about John, I would do one of a few things. One is joining them, and I would say, it is, what a bloody shame. Done. Leave it.
I love that so much.
Like, I will so not be provoked by you, cousin Bobby. You don't have the power to provoke me. Hello? No way. So one is joining, where they're like, that's terrible. You go, the worst. It's literally the worst. When you go into those things, your job is to be as unprovocable as possible. People at family gatherings are like, you've changed, right? Like, and they think it's an insult. And I always say, oh my God, thank you so much for noticing.
I've worked really hard at changing.
That's exactly right. Thank you. That makes me so happy. What other things do people say? Why don't you eat gluten? There's nothing wrong with gluten. You can say, oh, come on, please tell me we have something more interesting to talk about than my diet, than what I eat, than my dietary restrictions. So as long as you're not provoked, there's easy ways of distracting people, especially if they're not people who are like your close homies, as you would say, in your life, your VIPs. It doesn't matter. I'm going to see cousin Betty 3 times removed twice a year or once a year. So it doesn't matter if they're being inappropriate or asking intrusive questions. The most important thing is that you're not giving up information that makes you unduly vulnerable to people who may not be emotionally trustworthy.
And is that the same rule that applies whether it's family members or strangers?
Yes. Strangers, though, if it's not family members, I could be a little more sassy with strangers. I mean, not in New York, because you never know who's got a gun. But, I mean, in general, like, just telling the truth, or just stopping a conversation. I'm much more likely to stop a conversation with the hand up or the one finger up, especially in New York. People would say inappropriate stuff. I just will say, no thanks, right, as we were talking about before. I think to have good conversational boundaries, which does tie into childhood training, being the good girl, and especially that gets kicked up when we're in family situations, is that you've got to be prepared, right? Part of being successful at these family gatherings is being prepared. You know who the players are? You know who the drunks are? Don't hang out with them. So be strategic about who you spend your time with. You can get out of any conversation by saying, you know, excuse me, I have to use the ladies' room. What are they going to say? No, you don't? Then just don't go back to that corner of the party. Go somewhere else. If someone is judging you, I can't believe you got a divorce. He was the best thing that ever happened to you, let's just say. You can just say, hey, I'm not talking about this.
That is so strong. It's obviously very difficult, I think, for people to do in real time. And so for me, one thing I do is just embrace, you had said it earlier, you know who those people are. And so I've now stopped worrying about if they're going to say something and just go, you know what, they are. Worrying about it, Lisa, is just almost giving you more anxiety.
Yep.
You know them. You've known them your whole life. So you know they're going to say something.
Yep.
And now it is up to you how I respond. Do I get emotional even though I know it's coming? Do I have a script? You've given us so many beautiful scripts. Like, what do I say in this situation, or do I excuse myself?
Yep.
And going into a situation, just accepting it, knowing how to handle, or giving myself options on how to handle it, allows me to walk into the situation without anxiety.
Yes, and to feel free.
Yeah.
I also like to use humor, and this might sound weird, but it's a really effective intervention, as we would say in therapy, where if someone says like something that they're trying to get your goat, like they're trying to, just literally saying, oh my God, you are so funny. You kill me. You kill me. Oh my God, I'm gonna go get a drink. Like literally laughing in their face, de-escalating. They're trying to get you, even if they said, I can't believe you let him go. It was the best thing that ever happened to you. If you start laughing and being like, oh my God, you're just a crack up. You just kill me. What are they going to do? Like, it de-escalates.
Oh, I love that.
It really does work. And then you get to walk away. And they're trying to provoke you, but what you're saying in laughing and being like, oh my God, you're killing me, is that you're not taking the bait. They're trying to bait you, and you're like, nope, I'm not. Would you like a cookie? I'm going to get one, right? And you can be done with that conversation. I like to use humor too, as much as I possibly can. A little bit of levity goes a long way in these family situations, even if someone is trying to hurt you or trying to provoke you. Maybe they're not trying to hurt you, but they're nosy or they're bored or I don't know. That's their side of the street, right? We don't know. But you going in exactly as you just said, prepared with different ways of being, bring some of those scripts that I provide for you. We can put some in the show notes if people want them, so that you have it in your back pocket and you go, oh, these are the problem people. There's like 3 people who I know are going to say something. So I need to decide that I'm not going to be provocable, because that's kind of what the person is into doing. Avoid them. And also, you don't have to go to every gathering that you're invited to. What do they say? You don't have to attend every fight you're invited to. Like, you don't. Distract. If they say something, you say, oh wait, I wanted to ask about, I heard that you got a new job. Tell me about that. People just want to talk about themselves. You can do a distraction so easily, but you got to think about it ahead of time.
Oh my God, I really hope people at home right now just wrote all those things down. You just gave so many freaking nuggets of gold of how people can handle those situations with such grace. It's beautiful. And I do like that, almost like that final thing of like, you don't have to go, because it's going to take time. And you've said it before about languages. Boundary is like a language. It's like if you were all of a sudden to go say, I want to learn a language, you wouldn't expect to know it after 2 hours of listening to, you know, an audible. You would actually have to wax on, wax off, practice. It would
Correct.
take years. And so with what you're saying, with setting these boundaries, we understand that it's not going to be, you know, easy, one and done, super quick, and, you know, you've got it. And so if you're not at the place yet to be able to say things like that, to be able to laugh it off, because even laughing it off, especially if it's still a deep-seated wound that you have, it is harder to laugh it off.
Yes.
So in those situations, to go, I'm not there yet. Terry, I love you. That's great advice. I'm just not there yet.
Yep.
Being able to say, then I choose not to go.
Yes.
For your own mental health, I think is so beautiful.
Yep.
Like, as long as you always say, that's going to be my priority, my mental health.
Yes.
And while I love my family and I want to see them and I, you know, do enjoy certain moments, going there right now would be detrimental to my mental health. I think that is so powerful.
Yes, and put limits too. Put limits. You can say, Aunt Betty, I can come. I must leave by 8:20. Then leave by 8:20. People are like, don't leave. You're like, oh no, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. So warning people that, you know, I have somewhere else to go, even if you don't. Even if 1 hour with this particular group of folks is enough for you. That's your right. And we don't have to say that, right? But it's your right to opt out at any point because it's your friggin' life.
I love that. And then also you've said, don't fake a consequence. Like you actually have to see that consequence through, because how many of us, like, especially I think in relationships, back in the day when I was younger, before my marriage with my husband, but it was like, if you, I'm going to leave you, you know, and there's always like throwing these threats out as a consequence in the hope that they would then relinquish. But then if they don't, you don't follow through. So you're basically inevitably teaching them that you can throw out a consequence and you're not going to see it through.
Yes. So part of the thing with consequences is we have different categories of people. You have a boundary first timer, which is someone you've never had actually used the words to make a boundary request. You have the repeat offenders, and then we have the boundary destroyers, which is a whole other conversation. Narcissists, you know, different cluster B personality disorders, whatever. So over here, first timers and repeat offenders. If you've already tried to establish the boundary, you have. Maybe the person has agreed to the boundary, but they keep stepping over it. You have to come up with a consequence that makes sense for what the thing is. So if it's somebody is late and doesn't let you know, and they said they will, and now you're sitting in a restaurant, let's say, because they're late again, the consequence is you're not going to meet them out at a restaurant. You may love them. Maybe they're really time challenged. I don't know. I mean, you got to be offering a lot to me. If you're time challenged, because I'm super on time, you got to be offering a whole lot of other things that I really love about you. But then maybe we only meet at my house or we only meet at my apartment so that if you're late, I won't care. I'll still be working and doing whatever. Like coming up with consequences where, or I'm not gonna wait for you for dinner. You know, you can make your own dinner when you come home if you're gonna be late and not let me know. That's a consequence that's commensurate to what is the violation, basically. But there has to be a consequence. Because as human beings, what is the one and only thing that motivates us to change? A little bit of pain, a little bit of, oh, I don't want you not to meet me out for dinner anymore. Like I'll be sad if we don't do that anymore. Okay, well then figure out how to get here on time, right? Because that is my boundary. That is my non-negotiable. Because not all boundaries are non-negotiable. You know, Lisa, it's like some things are just preferences. I prefer coffee over tea or whatever it is. But non-negotiable boundaries are really important that we let the people that we're in relationships with know how we feel about things, because we're all different. And there's nothing wrong with whatever your non-negotiables are. There's nothing wrong with that. I know you had said in an interview that with you and Tom, it was like, never cheat, never get physical.
Yeah.
Right? Those are non-negotiable. Like those things will end our marriage if either one of them happened.
Yeah.
Clearly, you're still together. Obviously, they did not. But you were very astute early on to be like, this is what you're signing on for, pal. So if this doesn't work for you, you might not want to be in this relationship with me, because these are non-negotiable deal breakers.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think it was because I had seen a lot of other women say that they won't accept, I'm just going to be honest here, they said they wouldn't accept their partner to cheat. They cheated and they took him back.
Yep.
And each to their own, like zero judgment. If that's,
Sure.
go ham. I just knew I wouldn't be able to take him back. And so to me, I needed him to know that. Like, I didn't want him to even contemplate that maybe there was a possibility of a persuasion that I would take him back. And so it was out of the sake of our relationship that I ended up from the get-go out of fear, because I'd seen so many people where they had physically abusive partners, they still took them back. And it was a deal breaker for me. And I thought, well, shouldn't he know this?
Yes, he should. He should. That's information he should know.
Yeah.
And then he has decisions to make.
Yeah.
And maybe neither one of those things would ever be in the realm of possibility for him, but your side of the street was clean because you shared it.
And what's interesting is, as I was talking just now, I realized a big part of it is I wanted to say it out loud to reaffirm it in my own head. Because I actually want to be strong enough to know that I can leave if he cheated on me. And there's that part of me that I think once upon a time when I first met him, I didn't feel as strong as I am now. And because I didn't know who I was. And so I think that was partly it as well, is saying it out loud to make sure I wouldn't go back on my word.
Totally.
So going back to the consequences thing, saying them out loud, if you say them out loud, you better be willing to see it through.
Correct.
Yeah. You dropped earlier something that I really want to talk about that so much of my audience talks about and wants to have more information about: narcissistic mothers. Because in family gatherings, in certain situations where you've, just given amazing advice, it may not work on a narcissistic mother. If you don't mind breaking down the different types and how they can show up, and then how we can start to navigate setting boundaries with our narcissistic mothers in situations of family gatherings.
It's so painful. First of all, I'm giving everyone who has a narcissistic mother a virtual hug right now, because it's brutal. It's really hard. A lot of times with narcissistic mothers in particular, mothers and daughters, it's a very specific thing. I actually have a course called the Mother Wound Course, motivated by so many of my people being like, what do I do? It's painful because a lot of times narcissistic mothers are incredibly charming. A lot of times they're very beautiful because they're kind of vain. Your friends are like, your mother's the coolest, and only you know what's happening behind closed doors, and how potentially competitive your mother is with you, how your mother sees you as an extension of herself, takes credit for your accomplishments, right? Like the thing on my mother's refrigerator. No, that would not be on the refrigerator for a narcissistic mother, because she's like, oh yeah, everything good that you are is because of me, basically. Cannot be happy for you. It's so sad. Like, literally can't. Because it's like something good happening for you can feel like something bad happening to her as a narcissistic mother. Like, there's not enough. It's such a scarcity mindset. Oh, trusting a narcissistic mother? No. They're going to use whatever you share with them against you at some point. So painful. I feel like at family gatherings, it's so hard. Like, you're going to have your mother, if you have a narcissistic mother at a family gathering, they're going to be telling your stories as if they are their own, kind of. Like, you won't have any ability to shine. Something amazing happens in your life. Your mother will literally be telling your story to the other people, Yeah. So how do you do it? Draw up boundaries. I wouldn't give a narcissistic mother unlimited access to your most tender heart, to your life, to your information. They want to make friends with your friends. They want to insert themselves into your relationships. So stepping back, sometimes it's really helpful if you have distance, meaning you physically move away from your family, even if it's only 20 minutes or 30 minutes. A lot of my clients have moved as far away as they could possibly get, because physical boundaries help. Because with a narcissistic mother in particular, a lot of times they're very smothering. There's different types. So there's like the rejecting kind of narcissistic mother. Then there's the more smothering type. I've done quite a bit of this on my YouTube channel. And one of my most popular videos is how daughters of narcissistic mothers can survive to thrive. Like, how do we do it for ourselves?
Yeah.
And part of how we do it is we find replacement mothers, right? We find healthy people who can mother us. So if you have these wounds are unhealed, a lot of times you'll find narcissistic friends. self-absorbed friends, controlling friends who make you feel the same crappy way that your narcissistic mother makes you feel. But as you're healing, and if you're thinking about it, you'll also be attracted to Earth Mama type women who are so happy for you to shine, who do all the things that a narcissistic mother is incapable of doing. And that can be a really emotionally corrective experience by having an older friend who just thinks you're friggin' great. Find a mentor who is not jealous of you, who is very secure in themselves. And those things can really make a difference in how you feel. At gatherings, stay away from your narcissistic mother? I don't know. Like, I literally don't know. Because especially in a group setting, depending on how explosive the narcissist is, it's like the perfect setup to have like a brawl. So I almost feel like creating distance is safer for the daughter. Let the mother do whatever they're doing, unless the mother's like, tell the story of this and tell that, and then you start telling the story and then they co-opt the story. That's not great. So maybe if your narcissistic mother wants you to tell the story of something, you can tell her, she can tell the story, and then just go to another part of the party. Because trying to set boundaries, if someone is actually diagnosable, because here's the thing, probably 6.5% of the US has narcissistic personality disorder. Those statistics change, but we're not talking about 1 in 3 people. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So you may have a self-absorbed mother. So let's just establish that what it means if you're really diagnosable is that you actually cannot have empathy or compassion for another person. Right? This is the telltale thing. This is what differentiates a narcissistic mother from a self-absorbed mother, a self-centered mother, a selfish mother. And all of them exist too. But they may still have the capacity to have compassion for you. And those relationships are worth setting boundaries in and having honest conversations in. Because a lot of times, a selfish mother, insecure, didn't get her needs met in childhood, we know there's all the reasons. But if you have an honest conversation, even if they're defensive at first, they have the capacity to change. That's not really accurate with a narcissistic mother. That if they're truly diagnosable, and other people may disagree, I'm just telling you my therapeutic experience in 25 years, that it's unlikely that a narcissist is going to gain insight into their illness and change their hurtful behavior. It's very unlikely.
And so as being the daughter, let's say, or the child, just acceptance and just like knowing that that's what they're going to be like, and then coming up with either don't go to the event, stay away from them.
I mean, yes, even though that sounds like a drag, but
I don't know if it's true.
Knowing what someone is capable of can spare us from smashing our head against a brick wall over and over and over again and seeking for them to be different than they are capable of being. But you can have emotionally corrective experiences in other relationships. Get into therapy, talk about it, join groups, look online. There's so much free stuff out there about this. You are so not alone. Also, if anyone is having this experience, dude, you are not alone. And you can absolutely heal from this experience, but you will not heal if the little kid in you keeps thinking that your mother is going to be capable of loving you the way that you want to be loved, because that just sets you up to be injured over and over again. So self-protection is really, I think, so important.
God, yeah, especially when it comes to parents. So many of us want our parents to be proud of us. And so giving yourself unrealistic expectations based on what your parents have given you, like recognizing that, I think is super powerful. And then the changing someone part of it is very important to talk about, because especially when we're talking about setting boundaries, you do need them to adapt. And so at what point is it your responsibility to set the boundary, talk about the boundary, make it super clear, set them up for success, knowing though that they have to change somewhat to adapt to this new boundary? Is it just as a boundary setter, that's what you do. You can just set it, and then you have to step back and just see if they're the person that is looking to change and adapt. Or is there any type of persuasion? Like, how do you navigate that dance where it's a little difficult for that person to on board, if you will?
Yep. And here's the thing, it's not persuading, but you bring up a really great point, is that we have to expect, especially in long established relationships, that it's going to take a minute, and that you may need to set that boundary more than once and remind the person, hey, when we talked last Tuesday, you said that you would take the garbage out without me asking. I don't know, I'm thinking of all these pedestrian examples. I can't think of anything else, but you get the point, right?
Yeah.
And the person says, I'm sorry, you're right. I am going to, okay, well, how is there a way I can support you in remembering? So maybe let's put notes on the door, and maybe that would be helpful. Like, we can support it, but it's in establishing the boundary and letting the person know, if I have to continually remind you, that really makes me unimportant, marginalized, and that you're just placating me, which also makes me angry and upset. So we have the conversations, but we will expect there's going to be some pushback when we change our boundary dances, because a lot of times other people were benefiting mightily from our lack of boundaries, and now they're going to have to put in a certain amount of effort to change their dance. And then sometimes we compromise. Sometimes they go, you know what? You're right. I can't remember it. We have the person who comes in to clean. Let's have it be part of this other person's job. Okay. I just want it done. I don't care how it gets done. So maybe we have to brainstorm a different way of whatever the thing is. So I think the more we can talk, the easier it gets. And if you cannot take it personally, right? You set a boundary once. I remember when I first started this process, I was like, glad that's over. Never doing that again. Yeah. And that's not accurate. We will most likely need to do it again. But the more we talk, I love to have couples do what I call, it's just a state of the union, where it can be once a week, once every other week, where we purposefully just have a breakfast where we talk. Vic and I do it in bed on Sundays, where we just talk about, how's it going? How you doing? This was amazing. I appreciated you did this for me. I felt really loved. It was so sweet that we fooled around in the middle of the day, whatever the thing is, right? That we love. So I always start with gratitudes and stuff that was great. And then what do we need to clean up? I have to be honest, I was kind of frustrated when this happened. We've talked about it, but I really want to ask you to please be more mindful of whatever. Or he'll say to me, I was frustrated, whatever the thing is. But we're normalizing having real conversations about real things, but we make it fun. We do it in a loving way. It's never like, we have to talk, because nobody ever wants to talk when you say, we have to talk, so never say that. It's the worst.
Yeah, no one ever does. And then taking it personally, that is so me, and I'm sure there's so many other people as well, because it takes you just enough courage to set the boundary. You feel like you've been articulate. You feel like they've heard you. You've had the conversation. And then let's say a month later, you start to see them slip. And so I used to take that personally. It's like, what the hell, what? Because I don't speak up, all of a sudden they think I'm okay with this again.
Yep.
And I would make it about me and not about like human nature, that people just forget. People drop things when they've got more things on their plate. And so just to repeat the boundary I found of just like, hey, not sure if you've realized, but a month ago we had this discussion, and right now it doesn't seem like you're fulfilling that. I would just like to remind you, and not feeling bad about re-bringing it up, but doing it in a way that isn't accusatory.
Yes. But also being honest about the fact that, I talk about this a lot with my husband and with my kids and whatever, that if you're going to give me your word and take responsibility for something, that whole job is yours. It's no more on my list of to do. I don't want to have to check back with you. I want you to just effing do it because you said you would. And when I say I'm going to do it, I do it. And there's a whole thing about emotional labor that now I'm not saying we don't have to sometimes remind about a boundary, and that's okay. But I mean in general, where if someone says they're going to do something and then they're like, but what's the number of the plumber and where's the thing and what exactly am I saying? You know what I mean? You're like, hi, that's literally like me doing it. So I think there is something about emotional labor. And I would say to my husband, listen, when you say you're going to do it, I appreciate you doing the whole thing from the beginning to the end. and me not having to remind you, that makes me feel loved and considered. And then it makes me know I can count on you. And I can, right? I mean, because that's what he does from the beginning to the end, rather than half doing it or doing it a little bit or asking me all the questions. So then I just go, oh, it's just easier if I do it. Because I think we fall into that, and that's disordered boundaries too.
If you're fed up of getting pushed around and you want to learn how to actually set the boundaries that you need for a relationship, then click here right now.
Eventually, we feel used, abused, angry, underappreciated.
Boundary boss Terri Cole draws the line.